I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Now, today we're reading from the book of Acts, chapter 26. Let's focus on verses 27 through 29. King Agrippa, do you believe the prophets? I know that you believe. And Agrippa said to Paul, in a short time, would you persuade me to be a follower of Jesus? And Paul said, whether short or long, I would to God that not only you, but also all who hear me this day might become as I am, except for these chains. I bet Paul got a laugh there. You got to hand it to Paul. He had guts. And I love the way that he just lays out the gospel like he's their rabbi. And then there's that abrupt, albeit somewhat humorous reminder that Paul is the rabbi in shackles. Remember that game show, Truth or Consequences? Maybe you're too young, but contestants answered questions to win prizes, and if they got the answer wrong, well, they were subjected to some demeaning stunt. That's the consequences. And it seems just when Paul was convincing Agrippa of the truth, the king was reminded of the possible consequences of following Jesus, right? You could be shackled, by the way. And given his pomp and political power, the certain consequences of dishonor and imprisonment were just too much for Agrippa. It was like Agrippa. I was that way. Confronted with the truth of the gospel for many years, I chose to focus on worldly consequences of following Jesus. How would this hurt me in the world? And to ignore the eternal consequences of a certainty in hell without Jesus. And I was more concerned with temporary glory on earth than the promise of permanent glory in heaven. And yet the Lord persistently pursued me. He watched as time after time I made poor choices. Ultimately, I became convinced the glory of this world is nothing worth having. Even when you get earthly glory, it fades so quickly. I became empty and tired to the point where the gospel ceased to be annoying, and it became my comfort. And it was because of a person just like Paul that I came to believe in Jesus. Someone shared the gospel with me. And I was like one of the onlookers in the Roman governor's palace because I overheard a guy boldly proclaiming the gospel of Jesus to another guy. And the guy that he was sharing the gospel with just laughed at him, but I was considering his words. I was weighing them. And then I believed. Why do we make our church services open to the public? Because we want everyone to know the gospel of Jesus and to receive it. For them to become part of the greater church, as it were. And for more than 2 decades, I've been launching Bible studies in coffee houses and anywhere else that there's a high probability that a non-believer might just come in and stumble upon a serious Bible discussion outside of a church setting. People come to a coffee house for a latte, but then they might leave with a whole latte more. Paul's joke was better than mine. Paul said, whether short or long, I would to God that not only you, but also all who hear me this day might become as I am, except for these chains. Paul understood that God's target audience is all who may hear me this day, and that it might not even contain King Agrippa, who was the particular person to whom Paul was trying to persuade. So it is not incumbent upon us believers to produce faith decisions from people. We cannot make people believe, and we have no idea who will believe. Rather, though, by all means available, we faithfully proclaim Jesus, and we trust the Holy Spirit to convince men and women to believe. I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Now, Groundworks Ministries operates entirely through financial donations from faithful people like you. And yes, we do need your monthly support. Donating is secure and it's easy at our website, groundworksministries.com. Another way to help is just tell people about Groundworks Ministries. Hey, ever heard of Groundworks Ministries? Yeah. Of course, you can always direct folks to our website, groundworksministries.com.